Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of Naughty Neighbours. First up we have, my neighbours are running a 24/7 chaos circus, and my only defense right now is a tactical flashlight. Help. By Hufflepuffle Pass. Long story short, I'm losing my freaking mind. So my new neighbours moved in across the street a few months ago, and have single-handedly turned our quiet neighbourhood into a literal hellscape. It's not just me and my boyfriend suffering either. The entire block is united in this hatred. The next-door neighbour even asked if I could start hoarding my doorbell cam footage to start compiling my own extensive record of our residential dementors, sucking all the peace and joy right out of the neighbourhood. Here are the Cliff Notes on the book that is my recent life. The Lonely Hound. Anytime they leave, they tie their poor German shepherd up in the yard to howl and bark non-stop for hours. Honestly, I feel terrible for the dog. They are awful owners. Last week, after a heavy rain ended, they put him straight outside, even though it was still thundering for hours. He wasn't getting rained on, but he was completely losing his mind. You could hear the absolute terror in his howls with every boom of thunder. The blown-out beater. About 2 months ago, they decided to sip up their crappy beater sedan with a new subwoofer, causing the worst-sounding bass you've ever heard. It literally shakes my house and vibrates my bed. Oh, that will be illegal. Not in the good way either. It doesn't matter if it's during the day, if it's exceeding a certain level of noise. Yeah, that's not allowed. Sometimes they just sit in the driveway blaring it for hours. Oh, and they keep a toddler in the car with them while they do this. So clearly they're also parental units of the year. The Feral Youth Demon Choir. There are roughly 100 children living there or visiting at any given time. Okay, not really. But at times there are at least 10 over there. They like to play in the street, which is fine. Until it gets after 10 p.m., the city's noise ordinance cut off time, and they are still out there screaming bloody murder like they're getting paid to test the structural limits of their vocal cords. For context on how badly this sucks, my next-door neighbour is an RN who looks after her 84-year-old mom, and I work in transportation and have to wake up at 4:30 a.m. for 12-hour shifts. This past week, I got maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night. By Friday, I was so delirious at work that I started making rookie mistakes because my brain was firing on exactly half a cylinder. We've already called non-emergency police and animal control several times, which is definitely a first for me. It bought us a glorious 2 weeks of peace, but they came back louder than ever. Luckily, my landlord is making an effort to be my hero and offered to threaten their landlord with a private nuisance suit unless they intervene or push for eviction. That's actually very nice to hear. I'm pretty sure I hit the point of no return when they pulled up at 10:30 p.m. last night, a Monday night, announcing their unholy return with their concert of angry demon bees trash metal at 110 decibels. As I said, I've been slowly losing my mind. So triggered I went out there and yelled at them to cut that shit out already, only for them to tell me to shut the fuck up. The mom also chimed in to say it wasn't on purpose. How could it not be? It's not like you accidentally made it loud for a brief second. Which somehow pissed me off even more, like, huh? So you accidentally parked in your driveway while continuing to blast your busted-ass bass that shook my drywall for the 639th time, but it wasn't on purpose. How dumb are you? All of it. But the real cherry on top was the dad who decided to puff out his World War II starving child-era chest to tell me to stop being a bitch, and then called me, I'm not allowed to say that word on YouTube, which is actually discriminatory because it's very important to my people. Granted, I know I yelled first, but we, being me and the other neighbours, have asked nicely several times for them to stop. I even tried levelling with the guy before, and he seemed to understand and apologized, but that was obviously short-lived. But I'm sure I am the dumb... Talk about zero situational awareness. If it's not pure malice, it's weaponized incompetence of the highest level. I think it's just ignorance is what it is, coupled with a liberal smattering of stupidity. And arrogance. They assume that because nothing serious has happened to them until now, that all your requests and your demands are going to amount to nothing. Well, they'll learn. And if they're really this dumb, then honestly, they shouldn't be the sole caregivers of any living being, human or otherwise. In the meantime, yeah, I wouldn't trust people like that with a Roomba. In the meantime, I just bought a heavy-duty tactical flashlight for some light payback. Pun intended. No. My current plan of defense is to strobe light their car from my porch or window whenever they start blasting their bad vibrations. It won't blind them, but it will aggressively ruin their vibe. Aside from becoming a nighttime flashlight sniper, what would you guys do here? I'm desperate, exhausted, and open to any and all suggestions. Just please help me if you can. I'm sorry if this was a little crass. Quite delicate, actually. I clearly needed to vent and release some pressure from my insanity bomb before it exploded. But I feel like if you're someone else who's dealt with someone keeping you sleep-deprived for months on end, then you get it. So thank you if you stuck with me, and I will appreciate any ideas at this point. Put the flashlight away. Okay? I know that's not what you want to hear, but you cannot be the aggressor in this situation. Because then any complaint you've made until that point becomes moot. Because they'll start acting like they're the victims, that you've been harassing them all this time. And I guarantee you people like that will report you. So what you need to keep doing, you need to keep recording, you need to keep stockpiling footage, you need to encourage your landlord to go ahead with that case he's threatened if he is actually willing to do it. You need to report them anytime the noises are too loud, because even if they're playing loud music during the day, if it's loud enough to make things shake, they're only allowed to be within a certain sound level, even during the day. And of course, if they're doing it late at night, report that as well. And keep doing it. Just keep doing it. It sounds like their landlord's probably already aware of it, as per your landlord, so keep on at them. But you must not, and I know it's so frustrating, it really is. I've been in this situation where it's been weeks on end, and noisy neighbours have been keeping me awake. Had them on that side, had them on that side. Thankfully, I've got a different neighbour on that side there. Lovely man, lovely fella. The only noise he makes is an occasional squeaky door, and you know what? If that's the worst that happens, bring on the squeaky door. That's all I've got to say. The neighbours on that side were making a lot of noise for a few weeks, but they just moved in and they were renovating the place. They seem to have quieted down now. Now all they do is maybe smoke weed. There's somebody in the street smoking weed, and it only started when they moved in, so I don't know. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's them with that correlation. So I understand what it's like to be losing sleep when people are being inconsiderate of the noise levels they're making. But you can't do anything to them because you need to proceed legally. The law needs to be your weapon. Legal avenues need to be your weapon. So find out what the noise levels are at any time in your city. Keep reporting them for the animal abuse. Document it. And it's going to take a while, but eventually something will happen. And they'll have to move out or buck up. Although it does bewilder me when people get a pet, they get a dog, and they just put it outside like it's an inconvenience. It seems so stupid to me to do that. And there was actually an update to this story. Here is the latest from the circus. The weaponized pool noodle. For those of you who don't believe this, there is a picture in the original post, which I will link to in the description. A few weeks ago, my boyfriend Tommy and I were hanging out in the living room on our day off when we heard a massive bang hit our front window. It was loud enough that we actually worried the glass had cracked. We ran outside and found a screwdriver sitting in the bushes directly under the window. As we are putting two and two together, we look across the street. Standing there are two kids, including the neighbour's kid, just staring at us. My boyfriend asked if they threw it. Their response, "No, but can we have our screwdriver back?" Oh yeah, real masterminds here. I told them absolutely not to stop throwing things at our house, and that if they broke our window, their dad would be paying for it. Right on cue, Daddy Mouth Breather. comes charging out of the house. He immediately starts screaming at us to not say shit to his kids and insists it was an accident. That's what condoms are for. Mind you, he was inside the house the whole time, so how would he know? After he hurled a few more profanities at us, I yelled back that he was just giving us more reasons to call the cops, as if we needed another reason. We went back inside fuming, but a minute later the doorbell rings. Tommy opens it. There is the mouth breather, holding a pool noodle. I was honestly standing there waiting to see if this grown man was about to try to bop us on the head with a children's pool toy. Instead, he offers an explanation so profoundly stupid it still makes my head spin. He explains to Tommy, because mouth breather refuses to address me directly unless he's calling me a dumb of course, that his son has stuffed the metal screwdriver into the hollow end of the pool noodle and was just swinging it around playing, like you do. Tommy, trying to speak to him like an adult, nice try, pointed out that a screwdriver is not a toy, and putting it in the pool noodle to whip it around is a guaranteed way to hit someone or something. Mouth breather then starts spouting more idiotic justifications, looking like an inflatable tube man that broke free from a car dealership, and I just lost it. I started cracking up at the pure unfiltered idiocy of this grown man. Furious and red-faced, he turned to Tommy and said, "Tell your woman not to talk shit to my kids again." Of course, since I speak for myself, I shot back with, "This woman is tired of your disruptive bullshit and has already shown you she's not going to tolerate it." I know I need to keep my temper in check. We usually need to keep our tempers in check, but we have to let them out to play sometimes. But when this tiny, insecure Napoleon complex man addresses my boyfriend as Sir and acts like I'm a handmaid unless he's yelling at me, my self-control just evaporates. Breaking the law, breaking the law. Any Judas Priest fans out there? If you know, you know. And if you don't, you can use Google to look it up, which will then explain it to you, and then you too will know. Anyway, immediately after going back inside, Mouth Breather started aggressively mowing his lawn. How do you... Okay. I'd like to see that. I joked to Tommy, "Ooh, look, he's trying to tidy up the trap house before he calls the cops on us." We laughed, because what on earth could he possibly call the police for? Well, joke's on us, he actually called the cops. We only noticed the cruiser because we were leaving to go meet up with Tommy's parents. On our way out, we ran into my stepdad, which happens regularly since he's our landlord and owns the house next door. We told him what happened, had a quick laugh about the sheer audacity of Mouth Breather, and went on our way. The next day, my stepdad gave us the rundown. He had walked over and spoken to the officer before they left. Apparently, Mouth Breather wanted to document the incident because he feels as if we were harassing him by him throwing a screwdriver at you and then coming to your house. Okay. I snorted so hard I nearly choked. Fortunately, because of the mountain of reports from us and the rest of the block, these people are already firmly on the police's radar. The officer told my stepdad he could tell they were lying through their teeth. Mouthbeard didn't even have the spine to talk to the police himself. He sent his wife out to spew a wave of word vomit, while pointing aggressively at our house. So he likes to do it man-to-man, except when he can use his wife as a human shield. Got it. The police didn't take any of it seriously, never contacted us, and the officer even warned them that they'd get a heavy citation if the kids threw anything at our house again. Victory of the Hound. Now for the actual good news. About a week before the time of the pool noodle saga, animal control finally came through. Ooh, excellent. As a reminder, I wake up at 4:30 a.m. for 12-hour transportation shifts, and the non-stop barking and howling, and let's not forget the angry demon bee's trash metal, was destroying my sanity. I painstakingly compiled my security camera footage and filled out a formal bark log. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't even have to look past a single week of footage to fill up all 10 slots on the log. I submitted the log, the videos, and the photos. The city issued them with an official citation and a corrective action plan. Rehome the dog with people that care about it, to complete within 10 days. And with the threat of escalating fines and a warrant to seize the dog if they didn't get their shit together. Seize the dog anyway. It'd be better for the dog. I guess the threat of actual consequences finally knocked some sense into them. Well, the pool noodle certainly didn't. The German Shepherd hasn't been tied up in the front yard ever since. They actually built a proper outdoor shelter for him in the backyard, after Animal Control rejected their first attempt, which was a plastic-wrapped kennel which would have basically baked the poor dog like a sauna. We occasionally hear him barking in the backyard now, but it's normal life noises and we barely notice it. It is night and day difference for sure. Where we stand now, they've also mostly stopped the subwoofer torment. We still hear the obnoxious bass when they come and go, but they aren't sitting in the driveway letting it vibrate our drywall for hours on end anymore. For now, the neighborhood is relatively peaceful again. I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I'm not taking these quiet nights for granted. They still glare daggers at me every time they see me outside, but honestly, I just smile, wave, and enjoy the silence. Depeche Mode, anyone? Thanks to everyone who gave advice on my first post. If any other shenanigans happen, I'll update again. If anyone cares, but let's hope the powers that be allow me and my other neighbors some peace. Okay, story number 2. Extreme Narcissistic Elderly Neighbor from Hell by Jetsy 1970. I live next door to an 83-year-old woman who moved here about 30 years ago. One of her 4 kids owns the house. My parents used to own the house I live in. This woman has always been the typical narcissist. Her main currency is malicious gossip. She will twist your words into something entirely different from what you were saying right in front of you, and then run off before you can correct her. Of course, she then goes around spreading the lies in the neighborhood. I actually don't care all that much about it, because if the people she talks to are dumb enough to believe her, then it's no loss to me, and they actually may already be looking for a reason to hate me anyway. She has no respect for the word private in private property, and wants to behave as though she were living in a commune, and has the right to know every minor detail about your life as well as actually dictate how you live. She once became very obsessed about which bedroom I would be sleeping in, acting as though she owned the house rather than me. She has zero respect for anyone's privacy. Our backyards are close together and our decks face each other, and her kitchen window faces directly towards my deck. Naturally, she objects to having any kind of privacy border between our yards. She doesn't get a say, actually, if you own your property, as long as it's on your property. Being the noisy, invasive narcissist she is, I consider it a fence, but our state only allows them to be 6 feet high, which is not enough to shield me from her kitchen window and deck. You can get privacy screens that you can put on your deck. There are various types. The fancier you get, the more expensive they become, but you can get ones you essentially you install it, you pull it across and just lock it in place when you want it, move it back when you don't want it. They're fairly inconspicuous otherwise, as I understand. I have planted some trees which I'm hoping will eventually help a little. She's only going to complain about the trees, so. Even though one of her daughters owns the house, the first several years she lived here, she was constantly renting out her basement, and apparently her daughter didn't object. She would rent to college kids, who would have parties on the deck, making us feel like we were living next to a college dorm. Then one time she saw an ad on Craigslist from some young men who were out of drug rehab and looking for a place to rent. She told us about it, and we told her it didn't sound like a good idea, but she was going to go ahead and rent to them whether we liked it or not. As I could have predicted, they ended up running an illegal drug running operation out of her basement, with people constantly coming and going, obviously to make purchases. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Breaking Bad, but one thing I learned from that show is that when they come to sell the house, they do have to disclose that. Just saying. The law will vary from place to place, but that's one thing I learned from TV. It might be an actual law. I don't want to interrupt the flow and look it up. It made our small-town neighborhood feel like an inner-city slum. We did not feel safe, and it was particularly stressful on my late mother. Then, during National Night Out, when the street was blocked off, one of the tenants sped past the barrier, and according to my late mother, who was at the event, They came very close to hitting a child with their car, then parked facing the wrong way in front of the house. Police were called, and the nightmare was finally over. I was hoping that after this incident, maybe someone in her family would decide that maybe she lacked common sense, judgment, and consideration for others, to be in charge of a house, but no such luck. I mean, you assume they're not all the same. A couple of years ago, she informed me that she would be having a husband and wife guest for 2 or 3 weeks who are waiting to move into a new house. The man looked to be maybe in his 70s. Oddly, I never saw his wife. The neighbor came up to me and was very eager for me to speak to him about getting advice for growing trees, and unfortunately, I made the mistake of speaking to him. I mentioned to him that I was considering getting a fence, and his face instantly turned red, and he blew up at me in a very threatening way and yelled, "No!" acting as though it was his property rather than mine. The neighbor was standing nearby and acted as if she thought there was nothing wrong with the threatening way he spoke to me. He also had a huge dog that he left tied to the deck all day, and it had an ear-splitting bark that left me partially hearing impaired every time I came back into the house. They both knew it was a problem for me, but did nothing about the problem, no consideration for me at all. After that first horrific encounter with them, I should have never spoken to him again, but at the time, I figured it was only a temporary 2 or 3 week nightmare. It ended up being 6 dreadful weeks when he changed his mind about the house he was going to buy. I also thought that I would be visiting with a husband and a wife, but the wife was never there. I soon realized that he had multiple mental and cognitive issues. He was a blatant sexist who had no respect for women, and acted as though he was the master and I was the slave he had just purchased, and I had better obey him. He would immediately shake his head and shut me up any time I tried to speak. I was to be seen, but not heard. It was exhausting trying not to agitate him, but he would end up blowing up at me for no apparent reason. Sometimes his head would jerk back and forth twice. A Will Smith fan, eh? Followed by a sudden change in personality, like he was hallucinating, and acted as though he was a parent and I was his child. As time went on, despite the abusive way he treated me, as well as the fact that he supposedly had a wife, I started getting a very creepy sense from him, and he was getting inappropriate ideas about me. I also strongly suspected that my neighbor was encouraging him in this direction. None of it made any sense. I decided to disengage with him, but my neighbor did not approve of that. Clearly, she had decided that I had to engage with him whether I wanted to or not. It seemed obvious that there was some kind of juvenile matchmaking game going on, and I was viewed as a piece of meat that the two of them thought they could do whatever they wanted with. I also got the sense that her housekeeper and my other next-door neighbor were privy to the plot. My neighbor kept coming up with some kind of cockamamie excuse to get me to engage with him, and when I told her that I wasn't interested, that I wanted nothing to do with him, she would become very hostile towards me. It was a very tense and stressful 6 weeks, but the guest finally left. Bye, bitch. When I saw my neighbor afterwards in the backyard, she was very hostile towards me and acted as though I had done something wrong, but of course she couldn't tell me what she was actually accusing me of having done wrong. But she feels like it's wrong, and their feelings are all that matter. Typical narcissists causing other people grief and stress, trying to control their lives and never taking any accountability for their actions. Instead, they shift blame to their victims. These have got to be some of the most evil people amongst us. A few months later, I spoke to her on the phone, when she was out of town, and told her about how abusive her guest had been to me, and she seemed to understand, so I thought that was that. However, a few months later, when she returned home, I woke up to someone banging on my back deck door. It creeped me out. I opened the blinds and door, and she started raging at me like a lunatic, not making any sense. For the love of God, tell me you have cameras. She was in a blind rage and not in control of her faculties, and no matter what I said to her, she acted as though she couldn't understand or respect any points I was making. Of course, I knew it was her being furious because I had refused to let her force me into a relationship with her abusive, mentally disturbed guest. When she was done, she went over to my other neighbor's house and was obviously discussing it with him. It's pretty disturbing to know that you live next door to someone who believes that they have the authority to dictate your life and you have no rights to make your own decisions. I consider what she tried to do to me is attempted assault and battery by forcing me to have some kind of relationship with a verbally abusive, mentally unstable, and cognitively challenged old man. I would never have felt safe being alone with him in a house or a car, and I absolutely just wasn't interested, period. I really wanted to file some kind of complaint, but I felt that I should have some kind of solid proof to back up my complaints, and I had no idea how to do that when the harassment doesn't take place via email or text. Cameras. Since she is a disgusting extreme narcissist, I would hope to be concerned about fake retaliatory accusations from her. Also, about a year or so before this nightmare, she had gotten stuck on her deck when her knee gave out, and she asked me for assistance getting up, which I gave her. She seemed so grateful for my help, but then thanks me by making my life utter hell, and trying to force me into an abusive, potentially dangerous relationship against my will. If she were to need that kind of assistance again, I am not sure I would give it, absolutely fair, because I would have to wonder what kind of nightmare I would have to endure from her afterwards. She doesn't deserve any help from me, in my opinion, after what she tried to do to me. I also feel that it should be her kids' responsibility to make sure she is taken care of, not mine. But since I am here and they are not, it feels like she's more my problem than theirs, and I'm not okay with that. 3 of them live in the area, so it isn't like they're all that far away. I took care of my own parents and expect others to do the same, but from the looks of it, they pretty much leave her to her own devices. Right, well, firstly, you need to get cameras front and back. Make sure your property is covered so that any shenanigans that does happen, you can get video and audio footage of it. That's very important that you do that. You need to do that right away. And then any shenanigans that do happen, make sure you save those files. That's the proof you'll need for the future. And if she's coming to your door and banging on it and things like that, you need to phone the police. Please, just for your own sake, phone the police. And it's very important that you do not engage with her at all from now on. Block her number. Or change your phone number. Whatever's the easiest route for you. But there's no reason this woman should have any access to you whatsoever. It doesn't matter that you live in proximity, so what? Big deal. She need not exist in your world as far as you're concerned. So, block her number, get those cameras, get on with your life. And when it's appropriate to do so, call the authorities. There might even need to be a time or two for a wellness check if she's that out of sorts. But you're right, if she's acting this unusual, it really is on her family to be checking on her. Unless, of course, they're just like her. I mean, she raised them after all. Story number 3. Neighbours sharing our garbage. By Competitive Dog 7723. My fiancé and I just bought our first home, and we're trying to figure out if we're overthinking this situation with our neighbours. The previous owners lived here for about 40 years, and were extremely close with one set of neighbours, an older couple in their 80s. From what we've been told, they were basically family. They spent holidays together, had family gatherings, etc. On closing day, we introduced ourselves to all our direct neighbours and brought everyone a small plant with a note and our phone numbers. No, don't give your neighbours your phone numbers. Okay. What's done is done. The plant was a nice gesture, but not your phone number. The older couple was incredibly kind and even gave us a new flag for our pole as a welcome gift. We chatted for a while, and they genuinely seemed like lovely people. Today I was at the house by myself cleaning when the wife came over and asked if my fiancé was home, because she wanted to talk to him about the garbage situation. I assumed she meant the pickup schedule, so I asked what she meant and said she could talk to me. Instead, she walked me through my house. Also, what the fuck? No, they should have no access to your house, and into the backyard to show me where garbage pickup happens. Behind our houses there's a small service road where trash is collected. Our garbage cans are kept in a small area that's between 2 fences. Our backyard is fenced. Then there's another fence around the garbage can area. The important part is that this entire area is still on our property. She explained that for years, they and the previous owners shared the garbage can area so animals wouldn't get into the trash. She said she'd like to keep doing it that way. I told her I'd talk to my fiancé about it. Here's where we're conflicted. Nope. You've got no proof they did that anyway, and if it was an arrangement that was important enough, then the previous owners could have passed that information on to you when you bought the house. There's more to the story, by the way, but no. We don't really love the idea of our neighbours having regular access to our property, even if it's just to put garbage out. Oh, well, she seems quite liberal with the notion of having access to your property, doesn't she? It seems as though they don't really put the garbage out on pick-up days, and that was handled by the previous owners, so they really just put their garbage and recycling in the cans that live in our yard, and we are expected to put it out. We also have a dog, and one of our biggest concerns is someone accidentally leaving the gate open, and him getting loose. I'm also unhappy that she felt as though she could walk through my house. It's a bit frustrating because after the garbage situation, it was a while before she left, and I could get back to what I was doing. I know they were close to the old owners, who are gone, but we're still new to each other. And you don't need to get any closer than that. Block the number. We don't want to start off on the wrong foot. Oh, go on. Because they've been nothing but kind to us, but at the same time, we feel like it's reasonable to want our yard to be private. We're also worried it will start to snowball or more, and more boundaries being crossed. Yeah. They're expecting to essentially have the same relationship with you. I don't know this, just a feeling that they had with the old neighbours. Has anyone dealt with something similar after buying a house? How would you politely tell them you'd rather keep the property separate without damaging the relationship? Are we being unreasonable, or is this a pretty normal boundary to set? Well, you don't have a relationship with them, so you don't really need to worry about damaging it. Just explain that's the way it is. You're not comfortable with it. You just moved in. You appreciate they had an arrangement with the old owners, but you're new owners now, and you don't want to continue that relationship. They can choose to be upset about it, but it will entirely be their choice. If they can't understand why you wouldn't, it's a them problem. Edit. I forgot to mention, when I arrived to the house, I noticed the cans that we had left out with garbage were put back in the yard, including a can of recycling I hadn't seen before. I thought it was weird, but thought my fiancé had brought the cans in, or I didn't notice the recycling. It wasn't until after this interaction happened that I realized they brought them back into our yard because they were also using the cans out of our yard. They returned them and then put the recycling in, so they already started without asking. Edit 2. Tired of the "what about the community" comments. We went over there and introduced ourselves, gave our numbers, offered our help since we are young and able. We can build community without blindly trusting people to come in and out of our yard 3 times a week. You also don't need to do that. You can just be polite to your neighbours and live your life independently and privately. I mean, that's how I like to do it. Edit 3. Small update. We were at the house yesterday. Furniture hasn't come yet, so we don't sleep there, and noticed that one of them had come into our yard to bring their can out for garbage day. But our can was still sitting full of trash. We didn't expect to be there for garbage day, but I think the least they can do is drag our can out if they're using our yard. We will be telling them we aren't going to be partaking in this arrangement, which is perfectly reasonable. You're within your rights to do so, and you shouldn't feel bad at all. It's kind of odd of them to assume that you'd even want to. And the fact that they're just proceeding business as usual, because that arrangement should have ended when the old neighbours moved out, and they should be dealing with their trash on their own, in their own yard. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a preference and making it clear that you want to enforce it. They're not going to be your friends, but that's okay. They'll be gone soon. Story number 4. Advice, please, by Existing Salary 7289. We moved into a duplex in early 2025. We immediately became friends with the single mom, has 2 daughters, ages 13 and 5, and her mother is over there almost every day. We bonded very well, and her youngest would come over almost every day. She was having her parenting time. I didn't mind it because my girls needed friends and interaction. This spring, she had her friend who was in a shitty relationship move into the duplex a few doors down. I am very open to making a new friend myself, as she had 2 small children too. Immediately, drama ensues. She is making my neighbor's mom watch her kids all night, and then not coming home in the morning after work. Mother of the year, I see. She is missing work and pretending to go, but actually having an affair with my neighbor's brother. Jeezy, crazy. When he had a whole family he was living with. Spectacular dick, I assume then. This caused a problem between them. Not to mention her kids would be running around in the road with her not even outside with the biggest full diapers. Oh dear. Her dog wanders the street all day. Fast forward, they make up and are friends again. Woohoo! Cool. I choose not to be friends with her anymore or attempt to be. That's fine with my neighbor. This friend she had moved in is renting from the husband and wife that live on the other side of the duplex. Fast forward to this summer. Me and my duplex neighbor are in the garage, throwing back a few, and she tells me that her friend is having an affair with her landlord, the husband on the other side. They have 2 small children, and this woman works her absolute ass off to take care of them. I go home and feel an absolute pit in my stomach for days. I morally couldn't see this woman every day knowing she was getting dog-walked behind her back, so I reach out via Facebook and tell her what I've been told. To be honest, at this point I was okay with the relationship with my duplex neighbor dwindling if she found out I was the one who told the wife. I've been fed up with her sending her kid over at 7 a.m. and having her stay till 6 p.m. while I have 2 girls and 2 baby twins. Not to mention a month prior she had invited over the man who essayed her 13-year-old. Tons of other kids present, while we were all trying to make s'mores out of nowhere. She said she was trying to get him to admit to something on recording. Bullshit. She had him stay the night at her house, with her small daughter there. We left immediately with our kids when he showed up. After that, the relationship changed. So I was okay with being done with being friends. I was a free babysitter for her and was being taken advantage of. I had her daughter more than her in her own parenting time. She is mad at me, refuses to speak to me, yet still sent her kid over to play. Okay, cool, she can play. But it's not going to be all day every day anymore. July 3rd hits, and her mom is over. She is home, and she and her cheating friend are with the husband in their backyard letting off fireworks. Wife is left with the kids at this point. I am out on my porch, and the mom sits on her porch for a cigarette. Up until this point, the mom has been messaging me, telling me I did the right thing, and that she would have told too. The police pull up, and I tell her mom to go warn her the police are here. I walk inside my house, look at my hubby, and say, I'm going to get blamed for that for sure. Minutes later, I get nasty messages from her mom blaming me for the cops being called. She outright refuses to come outside to talk. Why would you want to talk to these people? So I can show her my call log. You don't need to prove anything to them. That it wasn't me. I block both of them after that night. Her daughter doesn't come over at all until Sunday night. My kids are at their grandma's, so I say sorry, cannot play. She comes back Monday. I say sorry, cannot play because we have a stomach bug. I actually had to go to the ER for fluids, it was that bad. She comes back Tuesday, I say no, sorry, I cannot because I'm still not feeling good. It felt weird that she all of a sudden shows up after not coming for a few weeks, so I messaged my neighbor and just made sure she wasn't sneaking over without permission. No, my neighbor was aware. I told my neighbor I wasn't comfortable having her child over if she isn't speaking to me. That it's weird to have your kid in my house if you refuse to even speak to me. I go on to tell her how incredibly inappropriate it is to send your child over to a house where you refuse to speak to the parents, and how unacceptable it was for her mother to text me those things. Her response, not my business. We go back and forth and land on okay, conversation done, don't send her over anymore. We don't want any relationship or contact. A few hours later, I receive a Facebook message from her mom, telling me we squashed it, and that I'm bringing old stuff up and making it affect the kids. Okay, whatever. When did we squash it? You have ignored me every time. We have all been outside, not spoken about anything at all, so I was confused. She then tells me, remember who your landlord is, as a threat. My duplex neighbor's uncle owns a portion of the property, LLC. My neighbor is about 2.5 months behind on rent. Her uncle has been telling her she needs to pay or vacate. Like, what do you think threatening is going to do? And then proceeds to say it wasn't a threat, and that I'm crazy for cutting the kids off from playing. This is such a wild thing to say. It's really not, because if the mother's not feeling that kindly towards you, if anything happens to that kid, so much as a cut, go apeshit. When her child was at my house with me more than her own mom during her parenting time, I was used as a free babysitter, and I was finally done with my kindness being taken as weakness. I need advice. Should I loop the landlord into what's going on? Yeah, you've been threatened, so you should let them know. Should I tell them the mom threatened our living space? Yeah, you've got those messages, send them on, it wouldn't hurt. I have them all blocked right now, but there are so many more parts I haven't been able to add. This is so wild. Definitely, just to make sure they're aware of what's going on. Even if they're stupid enough to actually try and make good on that threat, they're not exactly in a position of strength now, are they? Okay, fifth and final story. Am I the asshole for texting my neighbour and making his wife fear the worst? By Cinder42199. I, 27 female, and my husband, 29 male, got married, then immediately moved into our first home the following month, back in 2024. We met our neighbours. We'll call them Dave and Becky. On day one, we thought we scored incredibly kind neighbours. We're not sure their age, but given they have adult children, they're old enough to be our parents. The first thing they did was give us both their phone numbers. And the husband informed us that if we ever needed anything, to get a hold of him, since his wife does not text much and sometimes doesn't receive them. We didn't think anything big about this, since we typically tell people to contact me, as I keep a detailed schedule for both of us. We assumed the husband was the main communicator, given he is the only one who works. For over a year, things were great, and we became very close to them. My sympathies. We had them over for dinner and games on several occasions. They cat sat for us when we went out of town, and we tackled outside housework together like snow shoveling and yard work. Randomly last summer, there was a sudden change when I noticed for a few weeks, each time I saw them outside, I would wave, "Hi," and get no response. I also noticed Dave would run into the house when he saw me. When I would text Dave inviting them over, I would get no response. This went on for a few months, where I felt completely ghosted. Each time I would tell my husband something was wrong, he would tell me that he saw them the other day and everything seemed fine. They would talk to him and wave just fine, and it seemed like they were only avoiding me. A few months go by and we run into Becky at the wholesale store we both frequent. She looked very uncomfortable when I approached her. But I let her know we were open that evening if her and Dave wanted to come over and clear the air or talk about anything. She reluctantly agreed, and that evening they both came by and sat at our table. Instantly I noticed Dave was avoiding eye contact with me. Before I could say much, Becky began screaming at Dave at our table about how Dave has a crush on me and she thinks I on him. Girl, just 'cause you chose it doesn't mean anyone else wants it. She said we've been too friendly with each other, my text messages were inappropriate, and she caught him looking at me in a way that made her uncomfortable. Some of the things she accused him and I of are as follows. She claims she saw Dave look at my chest region more than once. He's a man, he probably did. She claims Dave is too friendly when he speaks to me regardless of the topic. She claims Dave is constantly looking for a reason to text me. Example being he texted me what time he was at our house when cat-sitting. She felt it was unnecessary since we knew he was coming over. She says I overstepped by telling him, "I appreciate you." That's just something people say when he cat-sat. Apparently she found that too flirty. I'll be flirting all over the place then when I'm grateful for people. She's mad at my use of heart emojis. Don't tell her about the eggplant. I placed a heart emoji following a thank you when he helped us out with something, and she found the heart to be a secret message of me having a crush. My husband and I were taken completely aback. For starters, yes, I had been in communication with Dave, but it was always to invite them over for dinner, both of them, tell them thank you for a favor they did, or ask a neighborhood-related question. Nothing had ever been in cross-the-line territory, and my husband knew about each time I messaged him, since I always communicated that. My husband would also ask me to message him on his behalf at times. Becky informed us that my number has been blocked, and Dave was not allowed to talk to me again, or even walk by my house anymore when walking the dog, in her words, to limit the temptation. As if you don't have a say in anything that happens. Following this interaction, we all started avoiding each other. Good call, because we didn't know how to come back from that. Fucking Dave's dick ruined everything, didn't it? Fortunately, my husband and I have a very well-communicated marriage, and he knows I was trying to be a friendly neighbor. I offered to show him my phone for any peace of mind he may want, but he declined and reassured me that Becky came across as jealous, and found my kindness and social butterfly personality threatening. I've been cheated on before, and would never do that to anyone, especially someone I love. The tension for the last year has been extreme, and I'm honestly still trying to process everything. We have discussed moving, but we are not financially able to do that at the moment. More has happened in the last month, but I needed to find a way to talk about this. Any advice for living next to a neighbor like them is appreciated. Please let me know if this is worth making a part 2. Thank you. Well, there is an update, but before we go on, I mean, the only advice you need to have there is you've got all the proof you need that nothing's happened, and if communication seems to have been cut off on both ends, so that's the way to proceed. Really, it's no big loss. I mean, maybe Dave did have a crush on you, maybe he didn't, maybe Becky was just a jealous hoebag, who knows? Or maybe she's got a little crush on your husband. Update. I'm really surprised by the amount of replies I've gotten already, and decided to make the update. For a while we felt bad for Dave, and here we go, until a few months following where my last post left off. My husband received a text from Dave saying, "Tell me she ruined my marriage." Nah, buddy. You did that all on your own. It wasn't at all her fault, but she helped. My husband just ignored it and figured he was trying to cause a feud between us. We have done our best to avoid them for months, but I sadly ran into Becky a couple of days ago. Dave started working at the wholesale store we frequent. One of the cashiers there, we'll call her Hannah, let me know as soon as she found out he was hired. We've been able to avoid them, especially knowing their cars or having my husband with me. Hannah also let me know she has also been accused of Dave having a thing for her. Yeah. Apparently Becky I doubt that you two are the first this has happened with. Apparently Becky confronted her about her wearing leggings or boots at work. Not leggings and boots? My God. "You shouldn't wear those here. Clothes like that turn my husband on." Madam, breathing in and out turns your husband on. On Dave's first day, Becky showed up at the beginning of his shift and lingered around the store the entire 8 hours. I think you can trespass her at that point, surely. Dave worked, and was caught following women around the store as if to make sure her husband didn't assist them. A couple of days ago, I stopped by the store alone following church, and sounds like they need to go to church as well, and didn't see their cars, so I felt safe going in. I walked in and saw a glimpse of Dave working in the back. I just ignored him and grabbed the 2 items I had gone in for. While I was shopping, I didn't see Becky enter the store. She was standing by the register with her arms crossed. I did my best to ignore her, but when I turned to leave, I heard, "We need to talk." No, thank you. She followed me to the parking lot, trying to get me to confess to an affair. I stayed calm and tried my best to explain nothing happened, but she wouldn't believe me. I finally told her I was done discussing this and I was leaving. An hour later, Hannah called to inform me that Becky has been banned from the store. Woohoo! Ban Dave too. Fuck that guy. The owner and his father saw her approach me and try to leave. This was her last straw. If Becky returns, Dave will be fired. Oh, Dave's gonna get fired then. She has now caused multiple problems there. For now, we are continuing to stay on our side of the fence. I have started carrying pepper spray again. If you haven't got cameras, get some. And some have told me to consider a restraining order. It might be a good idea, actually, yeah. While I have considered that, I'm worried I don't have enough, that's what the cameras are for, valid proof for one, alongside the wholesale store. See if you can maybe get a copy of the camera footage from the store. They've probably got one outside of her following you outside. Wholesale store. We also discovered they're banned from Panera Bread. Oh no. I guess they both complained each time they went there to try to get free food, were asked not to come back. They've figured the drive-thru was still okay, and then they were trespassed by the police. Anyways, we're continuing to avoid them, and I no longer go to the store without my husband present. Thanks for reading, and I'm open to more advice if any. I think you definitely need to, just as a peace of mind thing, even if you never actually end up needing them, get yourself some cameras just so you can monitor the goings on, just in case anything comes of it. Make sure you've got all the messages and everything saved. I mean, you've got evidence of harassment from her, and then a little bit from him when he blamed you for ruining his marriage. Just, by existing, or how dare you, existing and doing nothing. Shame on you. So you might actually have enough to get the ball rolling on some sort of restraining order. Certainly something you should keep in the back pocket. Look into what would be required to do it, just so you know when the time comes what you need, and if you have enough. But you've definitely got evidence you are being harassed. Yeah, definitely don't feel bad for Dave, because honestly, it sounds like Dave's just a horn dog. He's probably done this to other women over the years. I would be very, very shocked if you and the young lady in the store were the first he's been harassing. Fucking men. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you'd like to support the channel, you can sign up for my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. $1 or more gets you early access to all the videos at once on Monday. It's just a pay what you feel kind of thing. There's also a link to my merchandise store over on Teespring, as well as my Discord server, my Threads account, and my email is kingofthecities@gmail.com if you need to contact me. That's everything for now, so until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves. Bye bye!